But anyway, I use this really fine wire to make that connection. Again, this is the 28 gauge galvanized, same things you would get as fluoro wire. This is just galvanized wire, that's all. So now, since I made this little connection here, it's quite small. It helps locate the front of the fins. Now I want to replace the connection back here. So I'm going to get another length of wire. And this, again, this little case has a handy little wire cutter. Bing. Yes, sound effects are always necessary. Do a little dissection and cut the original clip off. I would recommend holding on to these pieces because they will go flying. There we go. And now I want to replace that with this wire. Again, you can technically like knot this, like use it like string, but it's not really strictly necessary. You can just wrap it. Again, using these really long needle nose, these are handy. I'm going to wrap it diagonally back and forth, so it's more like lashing with rope. Anybody in whatever version of Scouts or whatever, if you've ever had that, or some knot tying lessons, hey, see, it does come in handy. Except for I'm really bad with tying knots, so there's that. So I'm just going to loop this back and forth, pull it snug. Be careful if you're trying to pull this in longer lengths. Be careful of knots and such. I know it's really hard to see with this camera, but if it starts to crimp, these will definitely create weak points. And since this wire is so fine already, it will tear on you. It will fatigue and break. Of course, the flip side of that is, all right, get some more wire. It's not that big a deal. But this length that I clipped, honestly, it's way too long. I just want to do a couple of passes in either direction, and that will be plenty. And if you get this all running nice and parallel, it does look pretty too. But if you're using like the floral wire, that's fine. It's not as noticeable, so it blends in, or this becomes an accent, whatever. So I'm just going to finish that last pass. That off of there. Now be careful doing this by hand, because just like stabbing yourself with this big wire, same deal, only this is much finer wire and it will stab you even easier. So just be careful. Like I said, though, you can't really crimp this wire. You can just kind of close it around. So it does have its drawbacks. It makes for a very small, fine connection, but you cannot crimp and crush it because it's too fine. So there you go. But that's what I wanted to do. Just make those little connections. That cleans up the shape, works nicely. I had already made this head. I'm going to connect this in, but what I want to do, what I intended to do, is this little ridge I was going to make to the front there of the nose. So what that's going to mean is I'm going to have to figure out where I want to connect the head to what part of the coil or whatever. Try to mate this all along, or I'll mate this together. So this is a trickier part in that it might be better, instead of where I did on the fins and clip the back sections first, it might actually be better to do a quick little temporary lash at the front so that stays put, and then figure out the rest. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to clip another little length of wire, or rather another short length of the small wire, and I'm just going to lash this to the front here. But I'm going to just do this loosely because it's not really going to be a permanent fix yet. Just want that to stay put. Might have even been better to use the thicker wire. Actually, I think I'll do that. Careful when doing that so you don't smash your damn fingers. There we go. I just want to make this little clip here so it just holds the thing in place. and hopefully not smash my finger again. We'll see if that turns purple or get a good blood blister out of it. There we go. So that just holds the thing in place. The reason I wanted to hold the front in place first is because my hooks don't necessarily line up with the coil. So I want to pull this, I want to kind of crush this coil backwards, compress this a little bit, just so I have a better spot to align this. Basically just trying to figure out where is the best spot for all of this to fit. Surprised. I figured that would have turned purple already. All right. Back one right there. That fits well. And I've kind of finagled the coil a bit more so that now that one fits. Don't forget though, all right, messing with all this, getting this all set, tweaking back and forth, don't forget to check your image. If you've been working from sketches or whatever, don't forget to just come bring in your piece down and just have a look. Does that fit about right? My image is not really that great to work from this angle. The top, actually, it looks like the head is actually a bit too large. So there's that. Maybe I'll redo the head, but for now, that works well. But now what I want to try and finagle here is the front. And what I want to aim for is how thin the head itself gets. So where the jaw would be, that's actually a spot I want to flatten out more. I started doing this when I first made this coil, but now I just want to try to work around this and get that to fit just a little bit more appropriately. So that's what I mean by working back and forth. You'll kind of pull ahead at one spot, and then you kind of have to step back a little bit and decide where the next best spot will be. Meaning that you might have to work back and forth a little bit. Now, one other thing is an idea to try to maybe incorporate the mouth a bit. What I can do, and I was thinking about this, turning the shark to the side, I might be able to do is now fold the coil forward a bit. So it's still the same coil, no real change. I'm just getting it to angle forward a little bit. One, it'll kind of echo the gills, which I still have to attach and make, so not in that order. But that kind of helps flatten out the front a little bit too much, maybe. Looks like the inner profile got a little bit mushed, so I'll try to tweak that. Get in and do some surgery here. But that kind of flattens the front a bit. And that kind of lets me now, oops, the head kind of got all kinds of wonky. That's problematic. Whoops, might have crimped that a little bit too well. I'll have to try to get that to work with me a bit better. But it does let the head flatten out a little bit. So that's another way you could play with these coils and different designs. You have the same thing, but it doesn't have to stay concentric all the way through. The head is now a little bit more densely packed looking, so it makes it look like the head is just more mass, or there's more mass to it, there's more massive, more focus to it. The body is a bit more open. Just different ways of looking at it. So keep playing. I'm going to keep working on the eyeball and figure out the gills still. So I made these copper ones. They're just much too large. I need to make those much smaller, but I do want to use copper for the gills so it stands out against the coil. But just wanted to show you how to make use of this super fine wire that you can barely even see on the camera. And don't forget, keep checking against your images for proportion and details. With anything, if you're trying to make something look like something else, keep checking your reference materials. So always keep those handy. Don't pretend you know what you're working on, or otherwise you're going to end up making it look like what you think it looks like rather than what it actually is. Just good advice to follow. Okay, keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.